Hi, Provsions here, and in today's video I'll review the Type 71 heavy tank from the recently added Japanese heavy tank branch. So, let's get started. Gun on Type 71 is pretty much just a slightly altered version of that one tier lower. Alpha damage is the same exact figure. 400 hit points is a balanced number, it's not too low but not too high either. On the other hand, reload time was dropped to about 10 seconds, making the DPM slightly more higher, and the tank more competitive overall. But if we want to, we can make it even quicker by using gun rammer equipment to shorten reload time to nearly 9.3 seconds, and adrenaline consumable to make reload time last 8.3 seconds. And when we combine them together, we get a result of 7.7 seconds, and DPM slightly above 3100. Similarly to other tanks in this tech tree line, Type 71 has penetration slightly below the average, but for me it was doing fine, and for the most part 255mm of penetration on AP rounds wasn't problematic. But if you want to, we can switch to our premium hit rounds with 330mm of penetration, which is surprisingly 10mm less than in tier 9. Calibrated shells equipment allows us to increase penetration numbers even more, by adding 13mm on AP rounds and 33mm on premium heat rounds. Firepower on Type 71 seems solid for now, nothing mind-blowing but simply a decent gun. Gun handling section didn't change much when compared with tier 9 Type 68. Gun dispersion at 0.344 should be just enough to hit our shots if we only wait for the aim time, but we can improve it with refined gun equipment, making the gun dispersion 0.310. I know that some people tend to complain about inaccuracy, but for me it was just fine, and although it may not be perfect for snapshotting, the gun is accurate enough for what it does. We get a decent aim time of 4.4 seconds, that can be improved with vertical stabilizer equipment and enhanced gun laying drive equipment, that each decreases the aim time by 0.4 seconds, and when we use them at once, we get a result of 3.7 seconds. Just like all of the other heavy tanks in the tech tree branch, Type 71 has 6 degrees of gun depression, which can be worked with considering that this is a heavy tank. But if we really want to, we can add 3 degrees of both gun depression and elevation, thanks to the brand new improved vertical stabilizer equipment, making the gun depression 9 degrees, which I don't think I need to mention is a lot. When we sum up all of the statistics, we get a gun that is nothing more than a heavy tank gun in the 400 alpha damage range, but one that is simply solid and very consistent from my experience. Armour, in my eyes, is what makes the Type 71 the Type 71, and I think it goes without saying that anyone who has played in tier 10 recently knows exactly what I'm talking about. But if for some reason you are living under a rock, Armour on Type 71 is just amazing. Starting with the hull, we get a very solid upper plate with little side plates at both sides. And although they have the same exact armor value as the main upper plate, are not angled as much as the upper plate, making them in fact a weak spot when we turn our tank to the side a little bit. This is a very important weak spot on Type 71, but it seems that not that many players know about it, and that's probably thanks to the visual cover provided by the headlights, which effectively hide the weak spot from the unsuspecting enemies. While on the topic of weak spots, viewfinder on the very upper portion of the hull should be mentioned, but it's a relatively small and strong weak spot, so I wouldn't worry about that one. In between of upper and lower plate we have two thin little bars, the upper weaker one and lower stronger one. The first one may appear like a weak spot, but it really isn't, and the second one is effectively an extension of upper plate into the lower section, making the lower plate even smaller. And the lower plate itself is actually a really decent one. Not only is it very small for a lower plate, but it's very well angled, making it even harder to penetrate. Side armor on Type 71 is very good by itself. Not only our sides are strong, but we get additional spaced armor to help us with side scraping. And to add to all that, Type 71 has one more dirty trick up its sleeve, and that is additional armor on the sides right around the track wheel area, making this tank very suitable not only for side scraping, but for peeking as well, and I cannot stress enough how many shots have I bounced on this exact spot. Moving on to the turret, unlike for many others in the tech tree branch, This one is very solid and really makes for an uneasy penetration. Unless turret isn't facing us directly, it is basically impenetrable on the mantlet and the cheeks. It can be penetrated with premium ammunition, but generally speaking I wouldn't advise that, since it's a very tricky penetration and it can bounce shots that clearly should have gone through. There are a few weak spots however, with the cupola being the most prominent one, but no matter how big it may seem, it can be quite trollish and bounce shots here and there, so we really need to be careful when aiming for it. Other weak spot is the turret ring, and it is very small weak spot that's hard to hit, but it is there and it can be penetrated by some accurate players. Cherry on top of already good Type 71 is mobility, which by itself is nothing really special and will feel like a regular heavy tank, but thanks to the brand new improved suspension equipment, it can be much more than just that. This upgrade comes at the cost of additional gun depression, but in my eyes this trade-off is surely worth it, when we factor in all of the possibilities. Mobility was recently nerfed on Type 71, but this tank still goes very quickly, and turn speed is still amazing as well, so improved suspension equipment is still worth using. Right off the bat, it needs to be mentioned that such a combination of immense speed and sturdy armor is extremely dangerous in the right hands of the good player, but even less experienced players can do extremely well on this tank. And that's why I would highly recommend to grind out the Type 71 for both newer and more experienced players. Type 71 is most comparable to the IS-7 and IS-4, which although share similarly effective armor profile, Russian tanks cannot even compare to the Type 71 in terms of speed, and by that versatility. When looking at tournament battles as of recent, we can easily deduce that in fact Type 71 is a new meta tank. I wouldn't really say that it is extremely overpowered or that it ruins battles, but it's just hard to penetrate and above the average in terms of speed, which at the end makes for a very good vehicle. Playing with this tank does not really require a ton of experience. Gameplay revolves mainly around blocking damage in hold down positions and shooting enemies whenever they make a mistake. I must admit that I really liked how Wargaming balanced out some of the aspects on Type 71, by giving players a choice on whether they want to play this tank safely in hold down positions or more aggressively with better mobility, instead of simply giving this tank both features. So that's how Type 71 presents itself. Undoubtedly a very good tank that I encourage all of the players to at least try, since it's basically a prime example of extremely versatile heavy tank, that just so happens to be my best performing tank recently. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching, stay tuned for more, and see ya!